Episode 220.
So think about it this way. If I can take that $480 a month and save my car repair customer from that payment by investing $3,000 into their car today, then over a 40-year period, if I invest that $480 into a decent growth stock mutual fund at 11%, I'm going to get just over $5 million in return. Is your car, is that brand new SUV worth $5 million to you?
People don't like to be sold. They love help in buying. It's switching the script when you realize that what your solution is, not only is it moral and ethical and has integrity, but it changes the role that you play because you are no longer, I'm going to use the word just a service advisor, just a sales professional, just somebody in the car business. You are actually someone who's helping someone else achieve their dreams.
Welcome, Aftermarketers, to On Point from Remarkable Results Radio and a special interview from an auto care industry professional. On Point. Welcome, Carm Capriato here, and you're listening to the Automotive Aftermarket's premier podcast, Remarkable Results Radio. And this is episode 220 with my guests, Barrett and Tom Ziglar. Now, Barry is a Ziglar Legacy Certified Coach, and Tom is the CEO of Ziglar Inc. Now, don't touch that MP3 player. You're in for a treat. Now, I hope you've made the podcast one of your fundamental sources for information, training, insights, and strategies. I call it Learn or Affirm. I'm privileged each time to sit behind the mic with another guest, and today is no exception. This episode is brought to you by Federal Mogul Motor Parts and Garage Gurus. For serious technical training and support, online, on-site, and on-demand, Garage Gurus is everything you need to know. Find out more at fmgaragegurus.com. Hey, a big thank you to my new Facebook followers, Seth Scott, Sierra Pagoda, and Kevin Allman, and to my new LinkedIn connections, Sean Allen, Craig O'Neill, and Randy Dennis. Hey, my Twitter and YouTube connections are ongoing and appreciated. Hey, have you found the Town Hall Academy? Well, this is the weekly peer-to-peer training module with an important and unique subject each week. We actually broadcast the show live on Fridays at noon Eastern and record it for placement on my website's learning page. Now, there you'll find some of the hottest subjects for your edification. Here's an idea on how you can use the Academy. Schedule a lunch and learn with yourself or your team. It can be any day and in any time zone. Get yourself mentally prepared and dive into the Academy replay of your choosing. Find the list of Academy forums at remarkableresults.biz/learning. Now, if you want to watch live, get my Facebook link at remarkableresults.biz/live. Hey, when I asked Barrett to come on the podcast and share his recent creds on being a Ziglar Legacy Certified Coach and how he uses that in his profession, he immediately said yes. He also asked if Tom Ziglar could join us. Well, it took me about 3 seconds to say yes. So along with Barry, who has given himself on the podcast and on the Town Hall Academy so willingly, we have Zig Ziglar's son, Tom, who is the CEO of Ziglar Inc. Tom Ziglar carries on the Ziglar philosophy, and that is, you can have everything in life you want if you will just help enough people get what they want. What a treat to engage Barrett and Tom Ziglar in a conversation about personal improvement and selling in the aftermarket. Now, if you're a professional in our beloved aftermarket and are ready to listen to some great personal improvement ideas, you may just make this episode one of your favorites to listen to over and over again. Hey, in my formative years, I enjoyed and learned a lot from Zig Ziglar. Back in the days, his tapes, CDs, and loved his teaching style and believed in his message. So when Barry from RLO was able to get Tom to join us, I frankly never thought, just 2 years ago when I started this podcast, that the breadth of subjects, topics, and professional development trainers would grace the Remarkable Results Radio podcast. I believe the podcast has grown in breadth and depth of message and is changing the way the aftermarket is getting their information, insights, and ideas. Barrett and Tom Ziglar have their own show notes page with their bios and the episode talking points. Find it at remarkableresults.biz/E220. Now, we covered selling, the wheel of life. We talked about Zig, the fastest way to success, Tom's perfect start to your day, along with Barry and Tom's favorite, Zig Ziglar quotes, and so much more. Sit back and get absorbed. And if you're listening at Wheel University, then great. You know the benefits of podcasts while you're commuting. Now get ready to enjoy Barry Barrett from RLO and Tom Ziglar, CEO of Ziglar Inc. Here we go. Hey, I'm honored to have Barry Barrett and Tom Ziglar on the show. Hi, Barry. Good morning, Tom.
Good morning.
Morning.
This is really a special honor, Barry. You and I had chatted a while back about, hey, listen, come on the show and just do something with us on your Ziglar coaching. And he says, what if we could have Tom Ziglar on with us? I said, you mean Zig Ziglar's son, the CEO of the company? And he goes, yes. Well, after I recovered for just a little bit, realizing that we could have Tom, Barry said yes, Tom said yes, and Tom, here you are.
I know. It's imagine what happens when you ask.
Yeah, I know. You know what? That is absolutely great. You know, I've gotten actually more than I've ever thought of. You're always worried about the no answer. When you get the yeses, yeah. But Zig Ziglar is America's most influential and beloved encourager and believer that everyone could be, do, and have more. Zig founded the Zig Ziglar Corporation in 1977, and I believe that could have been back when I was listening because I'm old enough to be back in that era. He influenced an estimated 250 million individuals through his 33 books, including the bestseller See You at the Top, which has sold almost 2 million copies. So he was a big influencer for me, so that's why I have to pinch myself to realize that Barry's connection to you, to bring you on the show, to serve the aftermarket with his knowledge. Wow. So where do we start? Tom, how many coaches a year does your company certify like Barry?
We are doing, we're probably certified about 25 a year.
Oh, so that's a real special and limited class.
Absolutely. And we have a program called Ziglar Legacy Certification, and you have to go through that before you become one of our coaches. And the reason is very, very simple. Our philosophy is you can have everything in life you want if you just help enough other people get what they want. And it's based around personal development, building relationships, setting goals, living a life with character and integrity. And so we want all of our coaches to demonstrate to us that they've already got that in spades before they go to that next level.
No doubt, Barry. What you do is you help other people get what they want, right?
Absolutely. That's I've really have my whole professional life after I got out of the Marine Corps revolves around the Ziglar philosophy. I picked up his book and 10 pages in it. I'm like, this is exactly who I want to be. And that's what I was thinking then. What Tom has helped me with is understand that I am not trying to be Zig Ziglar. I'm trying to be like him. That's been a real awakening lately for me because we always grow and we have people in our lives that help us see better. You know, Zig, Tom's dad, said that he's an optometrist for life. If you go back and you've never heard his story on that and he got new glasses, it's worth a listen. And Tom is living and continuing his dad's legacy on helping be an optometrist for life. So that's really awesome is the best word.
Listening to your dad, Tom, I could listen to him 24 hours a day. I loved his style. I loved how his movements on stage. And every once in a while, people connect with, if it's the audio, whatever it is that makes it work. And Barry is like that for me. And it's possibly because of the accents. You know, I'm a Northeastern. And so, Tom, you may be able to say, Carm, you may be right. There's a psychology thing here that says, you know, when you're listening to someone with an accent or a different style of diction, there's a magnet there. Am I right?
In a way, you are. I've heard, Dad would talk to people. They would come to him and they would be very self-conscious about their accent, like an immigrant, for example, from another country. And he said, wait a second, actually, your accent gives you an advantage because people will lean in to listen. Whether you're from the Northeast and you're speaking in the South, you probably have an advantage because your accent is going to make people listen. If you're from the South and you go, to the Northeast, you're going to have an advantage. Now, you've got to back it up and deliver it. You got to have the sauce. You got to have the content to back it up.
I have a friend in England, and I talk monthly, and he goes, I just love the way you talk. If you came here to England, I can get you speaking gigs. And that's when it really, all that started to connect as to why I love to listen to Barry so much. Listen, Barry, we're here for the aftermarket. How does be, do, and have principle work for us?
So when I teach service advisors training, which is sales training, what I do is I start from the B. Because how can you, and Dr. Joyce Brothers said this, said you cannot consistently perform at a level that is inconsistent with the way you see yourself. Zig said that over and over, and he always quoted Dr. Joyce Brothers. And I believe that. So you cannot be one kind of person and do another kind of thing. So we always get talking about this pushy salesperson persona that most salespeople have. I believe my core that even though used car salespeople get this hard time, that there is a strong portion of used car salespeople that are the right kind of people. They sell the right kind of way, which is the do. And so that they have more out of life and all that life has to offer, some of the things that money can buy, but all of the things that money cannot buy. So what we do is we teach them to be the right kind of person first, which is a person of integrity. Do the right kind of things. Sell, don't do it to the customer, do it for them. And so you can have all that life has to offer, which is the have, which is the philosophy that Tom said before that he led this whole podcast with is, if I can help enough people get what they want in life, I can have everything that I want out of life, which is another way of the golden rule, to express the golden rule.
Yeah, I love that. And one of the terms that I call myself is an intellectual engineer, which if you look it up in Google, the acronym for that is NERD for nerd. But I'm studying Hebrew right now. And in Hebrew, there are two words that describe the word sell. And one of them is a simple transaction. The other word has a very high moral value. And what it means is when we are really selling, when we're really doing it right, what we're doing is we're looking into the future of a prospect and we're seeing a potential problem that they're going to have. And we're bringing a solution to them right now that's going to prevent them pain in the future. And that is a huge moral calling. And so a salesperson of integrity, you wake up every day with this mission that says, hey, I'm going to prevent people pain and problems in the future. When I do my job well, with integrity, with skill, with energy, with excitement, with all the attitude, all the professionalism, I'm actually making other people's lives better. And when we help a lot of other people, they tend to reward us with certificates of appreciation, and we call that money.
So I'm going to translate that, if that's okay, Carm, into exactly our industry. So what Tom just said is, if I can help people with understanding why they should take advantage and enjoy my product or service, they can not only save money in the future, but more importantly, they can save time. And time is more important than money. So what we do is I teach people about this return on investment on fixing your car versus buying a newer car or a new car. So the average car payment in Northern America, if you listen to Dave Ramsey, is $480 a month. But the person who has a car payment will always have a car payment, Will. And I've seen the surprise in Carm's eyes. If you think about it, there are $60,000 and $70,000 SUVs, and I see them on the road. 7 out of 10 people live paycheck to paycheck. 83% of businesses live paycheck to paycheck. It's worse than the average population. So think about it this way. If I can take that $480 a month and save my car repair customer from that payment by investing $3,000 into their car today, then over a 40-year period, if I invest that $480 into a decent growth stock mutual fund at 11%, I'm going to get just over $5 million in return. Is your car, is that brand new SUV worth $5 million to you?
I just recently did an episode, Brett Beechler, and he talked to me about his Excel spreadsheet that does this comparison and literally puts the numbers right where you need to see them on what that savings is over 50 years. And it is amazing to what you're doing, because it not only helps the industry and drives that maintenance issue home, it saves people a lot of money. So is what you're saying, you're helping people bridge that gap in selling maintenance?
I'm helping people, their customers, become independently wealthy by repairing their car. Here's what we know. J.D. Power and Associates says that you'll save 45% on your ownership of your car, your vehicle, if you do the maintenance and the repairs. So I'm basically saving you 50% of the operating cost of your second most big money spending expense.
You need to do an infomercial for the industry. Really, I mean, we'll just put it on the air. We'll put it on one of the news cable channels. You just get up there for 30 seconds, tell people all about this, and go see your local independent automotive aftermarket service professional. I mean, that's the story.
I'm just an old country boy with an LA accent, as Zig said, lower Alabama. Didn't do very well in math, but I can do a mean ROI, because you know what? Money matters.
Is it pie in the sky for a lot of people? You know, when you're sitting in that class, you've got the service advisors in front of you. Do they say, "What the heck's this guy selling?"
They do in a bit, and then I just ask them to role play with me. I say, "You be the most difficult customer you can be. I'll be a professional service advisor, and we'll see what happens." And what they do, even the most contentious of them, will see the light because of the Socratic method, the question-based selling. And I learned how to ask great questions from Zig Ziglar, because if you listen to tapes over and over and over again, he called it Automobile University, which is listening to that stuff while you're driving. I call it iPhone University now. You know, I'm getting, 2017 with this thing, but it's the same principle.
I think it was you that helped me coin one of my little Facebook posts, Wheel Time University, because that's what I'm doing, right?
Just on top of what Barry said, is people don't like to be sold. They love help in buying. It's switching the script when you realize that what your solution is, not only is it moral and ethical and has integrity, but it changes the role that you play, because you are no longer, I'm going to use the word just a service advisor, just a sales professional, just somebody in the car business. You are actually someone who's helping someone else achieve their dreams, because families are at stake. I mean, the people who come in as a customer, they have college education they want to prepare for. They have vacations they would love to have. Their kids need braces. All of these things come into play. And when you walk into your position saying, "I make dreams come true," it changes the way you sell, because now it's not about, do I have to do this or the next person that comes in. It's about literally impacting families and everybody they come in touch with in your community. And that's a cool thing. That's why I love sales. That's why, anytime somebody says, "Hey, what do you got?" I get excited, because it's not that I love to sell them. It's that I love to find out what their need is and help them solve that problem.
I'm talking with Anthony Frowine, a technical product specialist with Federal Mogul Motor Parts. Anthony, when you're in a shop, are you talking tech as well as product?
Whenever I do a physical training, there is product incorporated part of the whole training overall, but it's to maximize the time, whether it's diagnostics, whether it's inspection, whether it's installation. So that way they understand that, hey, by skipping that extra 20 seconds by putting on this set of brake pads and not replacing the hardware, hey, this might be the reason why that I'm getting comebacks. And usually, being a ex-shop owner, I understand that the first time you get paid, the second time's free.
And so are the techs really starving for this information?
Oh, absolutely. A lot of times you have, we live in an industry where I like to say they cut the roast in half and they don't understand why, but they do it just because they've always been doing that type of an industry. So, to break it through that, they've been doing something for 30 years and they see as they haven't been doing anything wrong, but it starts to open up their eyes to, hey, you know what? It wasn't necessarily wrong, but there is a better way.
So you're really talking to me about an aha moment.
Exactly.
And tell me, when you see that happening more and more from technicians that you're out with, how does it make you feel?
Oh, it's awesome. You really feel like you're giving back to the community overall. But ultimately, the way I tell them, I look at every single vehicle that I worked on prior to, or I had my customer, just like I'd put my family in that vehicle. I look at it as I'm keeping everybody else that much safer because the job's getting done correctly.
Federal Mogul Motor Parts' Garage Gurus is your go-to source for the vehicle training, technology, and answers you need to keep your next job on track. On site, online, or on demand, the Gurus are here to help keep your business and your career on the road to success. Visit fmgarageguru.com. Barry, explain the wheel of life.
One of the things that Tom has coined, and I love it, is the fastest way to success. And I hope I'm not stealing your thunder here, Tom. The fastest way to success is to replace bad habits with good habits. Okay. So the wheel of life is all we're doing is looking at our life and dividing it up into 7 different categories or spokes. And the first spoke that we concentrate on is the mind. What do you learn every day? I ask people, what's your morning routine? What's your habits? Do you get up every day and you click on the news? Because that's negative, completely negative. So what I do is I create this habit of every day I read for an hour and a half. I didn't start out, because that's overwhelming for people. I didn't start out reading for an hour and a half. I started out with 20 minutes, 10 pages a day. So if you read 10 pages a day, you'll read a book a month. That's 12 books a year. That's crazy. So the mind is where it starts. And then number 2 is, we call it our spiritual spoke. But I tell people, if you don't have spirituality, that's fine. Let's call it your beliefs, because everyone has beliefs. If you look at anybody in life, you look at their beliefs, their core values, you can call it. They have core values. They might be bad core values. They might be good core values, but they need to align closely with principles. And if you want to know the difference between core values and principles, you check out 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and Stephen Covey lays it out quite well. So that's the second spoke of the wheel. The third is our family. You cannot consistently perform at a level that is inconsistent with the way you see yourself. So how in the world are you going to give strangers great customer service if you go home and you don't give your family great customer service? In my background, you can see my boy up here. He's not so little anymore. My daughter, Lacey. My son's name is Lucas. You see my wife over here. She obviously outkicked my coverage. You see us all the way around. So how in the world, if you come and talk to my family and they say, well, Dad doesn't really do what he says he does, am I going to go and teach you how to do what I say I do? So I periodically, and Tom knows this, ask my son, I said, hey, listen, you hear me coach people a lot online. Does what I say line up with the way I am? And he said, yeah, Dad, it pretty much does. And he said, you're human, but you teach people that you're human. And you make mistakes too, but you always say you're sorry. You always say you love me. And that's it. The next, you're looking at your health. But because you cannot be an energetic person and have bad health. It just can't happen. And then another spoke of the wheel after that would be your personal life, your friends and your hobbies. Most people's hobby is to come home, crack a beer, and watch basketball on TV or, whatever. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with doing that sometimes, but that's the way most people live. And their personal life is coming home and sitting on a couch and watching stuff that doesn't really matter to them. Their friends, you're the average of Jim Rohn said, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. I tell my son, show me your 5 friends, I'll show you your future. And I don't remember who said that, but man, that's so powerful and so true.
Barry, how old is your son?
He's 12.
Excellent. Okay. I was just wondering his acceptance to all of your teachings. It's perfect, I bet.
Yeah, well, he was on the phone. He stayed at home because he was having a hard day. And, we work him out. And he was on Monday call that I have with Tom, and he took like 2 pages of notes. So he loves this stuff. He has to. He's got no choice. He hears Zig all the time. He has no choice. So in this deal where your personal life matters, I went and spoke at a high school, or not, sorry, an elementary school yesterday to a group of 3rd to 6th graders in my hometown, which I often do. And it's just a joy to be able to do, to give them hope, because I grew up in a single wide trailer and very poor. My talk was on, you can be who you want to be, do what you want to do. And we brought it down to the level of the 3rd to 6th graders, right? We didn't talk to them like they're adults yet, but I talked about my story and how I overcame, that sort of situation, and the idea that I didn't do well in school with grades. And now, we have overcome that. And so the principal is a guy who I played football with. He, as a principal, has helped that school go from basically not good to won an award last year for being great. And here's a group of students that are really in generational poverty. So the personal spoke. Now the young man, a 3rd grader, came up to me afterward, Carm, and he said, my dad was in the Marine Corps like you were. And he came back and he got in, and all he wanted to do was drugs and alcohol. And he died in a car wreck. Here's a 3rd grader, 9 years old, dealing with the life lessons that he should never have to deal with. So this personal life matters. This family life matters. This knowing, and I'm sure his dad wasn't a bad guy. He died in a car wreck. He just got mixed up, right? And so now we've left this empty place that we as a community need to come around this young man and help him. And that's the will of life. And then the next step is your financials. Having money is not evil. Having money is a good thing, because that's how you help people monetarily in our society. And then the last and least, I say, is your career. Because if you don't have the first 6, that career is not going to matter. So we need all that to balance out. Now, you're never going to have a completely balanced life, all 10s. Some of it's going to go in and out. I'm getting ready to, next month, I'm going to be gone for like 2.5 weeks out of the month. Well, my family life is going to struggle just a little bit. You guys know that, right? I'm just being honest, and I know it's going to happen. So I have to make that connection with my wife and my kids and Facebook and or FaceTime and all that stuff. That's good stuff. I can do this. So that's the will of life.
How long does it take an individual to absorb all of this and to make those changes? Is this obviously I'd love to listen to Barry talk for 8 hours, but how do I actually implement, Tom?
All right, let me give you 2 examples here. I was speaking in Australia a couple of years ago, and this guy in the audience, he asked the best question ever. He said, Tom, what's the fastest way to success? Just off the tip of my tongue, I said the fastest way to success is to replace a bad habit with a good habit. And then I really dug into that. We created a program around that, but it's kind of based off Dad's legendary termite philosophy. He said, hurricanes and tornadoes get all the publicity, but termites do more damage, and they take such little bitty bites. And so for everybody who's listening to this, when you look at those 7 areas, my mental life, my spiritual, my physical, my family, my financial, my personal, my career, imagine if every week you just took one little bitty bad habit and you replaced it with one little bitty good habit. Let me give you an example. Let's suppose that you want to have the best service advisor year you've ever had. You want to, you want your customer feedback to go up. You want your sales to go up. You want all those things. And currently you are not doing any automobile university. Or currently, you are not reading anything on a daily basis that's motivational, inspirational, or educational. And all you did was listen to a podcast like this for 5, 10, maybe 15 minutes a day. And if you really want to go crazy, Just listen to it on the way to work and the way home from work. Or you get a sales book and you do it for, like Barry said, 10 minutes a day. You just read it. And that's what you do the first week, right? You put that habit in place. And then the second week, you add a new habit. Maybe you get so caught up in work, you never take a break, or the kind of breaks you take are Cokes and cookies instead of maybe some stretching and some fresh air. And so you say, you know what? Instead of having the 10 o'clock Coke, I'm going to have the 10 o'clock, 10-minute walk around the building a couple of times to get my heart rate up. And you put that habit in the second week. Well, these are little bitty things, but if every week you just do that, you replace a bad habit with a good habit, how many of you believe at the end of a year, with all these little tiny changes, that your life will be totally different? And it's funny because it really doesn't take more time. We're driving in the car anyway. We're taking that break anyway. And so when we look at the 7 areas of our life and we start doing little changes, financially, maybe we have the habit of stopping off at the convenience store on the way home, getting a little pick-me-up, and instead we put that $5, that $3 into the piggy bank. Guess what? We've got a vacation at the end of the year, and our health's probably improved as well. And so all of these are little things. That's the simple process. So 2 weeks ago, I'm at an event, and the most honest guy in the world comes up to me because he tells me what everybody's thinking, but everybody's afraid to say. So he says, Tom, I know me. I'll never do those things. He goes, I'll go 4 or 5 days, and then I'll be on the couch, or I'll be on the internet, or I'll be playing video games, right? And I said, well, I understand, but, do you think you could, if you just did a couple of habits and got started? He goes, I know me. I'm going to give up in 4 or 5 days. And I said, okay, let me ask you a question. If you did do that for a year, would it change your life? He said, oh, yeah, it'd change my life. And I said, okay, well, like substantially? He goes, oh, incredibly. This guy's a successful guy. And I said, well, like financially, how much would it change your life? More than $10,000? And he said, way more than $10,000. And I said, okay, I got a deal for you. And I'll make this to every listener. I said, tell me the truth now. If you wrote me a check today for $10,000, and the only way you could get that money back is if every day for 66 days, you listened to Automobile University for 10 minutes a day, and you planned your perfect start where you worked on your goals for a few minutes a day, and you read this thing called the self-talk card, which takes 2 minutes. I asked him to do 15 minutes a day worth of planning, basically. I said, if the only way you get that $10,000 back is if you do that every day, do you think you could do it every day? And he looked me in the eye and he said, absolutely, no question about it. If that's the only way I could get my $10,000 back, you bet I would do it for 66 days in a row. And I said, but you just told me it was worth more than that. And you see, that is the mental transaction that we've got to make, is we understand the pain. We see that money going and we want it back. But the reality is far more than that is at stake if we'll only do the action. And the reason I said 66 days is all the research says it takes 66 days to create a new habit that's going to stick. And what do we mean by stick? Well, after 66 days on average, if you quit doing it, your body's going to miss it. Your mind's going to miss it. It's going to be, hey, something's off. We're supposed to be reading. We're supposed to be getting up early. We're supposed to be taking a walk. We're supposed to be whatever that is, and we'll miss it. That's why people join the gym in January and quit in February, because they haven't gone 66 days. Stick it in, stick with it for 66 days. And there's not really that much at stake anyway. I mean, it's only your future, your legacy, the way you feel, the relationships you have. I'm just saying that tongue in cheek. Everything is at stake. Imagine if everything in your life was completely different in a better way a year from now, because it can be. It just takes a little bit of disciplined effort every day.
Wow. I wrote down as I was listening, find other things to do with each hour of your day. And as simple as it sounds, as I was listening to you tell the story about the guy who couldn't change and he couldn't find the time to change, he'll be right back at it. if you were going to replace the Coke 10 o'clock Coke break with the walk, and you did that in chunks of time, Barry, have you ever taught people that were so close to making that change, methods or how-tos to do it, like I'm just mentioning?
I teach it in every single class, and I don't know if he got the 66 days from the book, The One Thing.
Yeah, that's where I got it.
Yeah, and because it's a great book. And we've all heard of the Pareto principle. Now, you might not have heard it called the Pareto principle, but we call it the 20-80 rule. Now, in the book, The One Thing, he talks about the extreme Pareto principle, which is that 1% of our activity produces 60% of the results that we have. Now, I have default mode. Tom has default mode. Carm Capriotto has default mode. Mike Gardner, my health coach, has default mode. My default mode is to work. Most people, that is not their default mode. My default mode is work because I've created a habit that's my default mode. My undefault mode is to work on my fitness. If it's between fitness and working, I'm like, let me make some sales calls today. So the 1% each day, I teach people that they should just try to grow 1% each day. Because if you worked on yourself 1% each day, then at the end of the year, obviously, you're going to be 365% better. And 1% is just incremental changes. I think Tom tells a story about, I think it's a Swedish bicycle team that put this principle, this concept into place, and they had never even contended for a championship. And then they won the championship. Spoiler alert, right? And so what would happen if we stop we think about success as this overall sweeping, this guy just got lucky. He hit the lottery. She hit the lottery. Well, what do we know about lottery winners? Well, within 10 years, they're dead broke. Why? Because what they didn't do is build the character to keep that money. So character is built in the 1% at a time. So what can we do? And the book says, what's the one thing that we can do? Such by doing it, everything else is either easier or unnecessary for super achievement. Darren Hardy says there's 4 types of people. That's a discussion for another day.
Will you come back and do that?
Oh, absolutely.
I just love to sit back and listen to you. Tom, have you ever seen someone who could pull a quote out of his pocket in an instant? I mean, your dad, and probably you.
Let me just tell you something about Barry. Not only can he walk the talk, not only does he live our principles, but he looked at the name Zig Ziglar before he was born, and he said, I kind of like the way Zig is taken from Ziglar. So I'm just going to make sure that they name me Barry because that comes right out of Barrett. So all the way to the stage.
That is so cool. Namesake. I love that. So guys, do you have to make a date with yourself to make these habits work? Do you need to go to your date timer and say, do you have to put the 20-minute read on your calendar? Do you have to put a sticky note? Where's the discipline? How do you make the discipline of change work?
Like, I know people are good at to-do lists. My wife can to-do list it to death. She's checking it off. But if it's not in my calendar with a time on it, I just don't do it. If it's on my calendar, I've got an assistant, Katie, and she will set appointments for me to talk to people because, Carm, I'm selling my services and I'm teaching my services. My days right now are just packed. So Katie will literally look at my calendar and plug people in. Well, if I left it up to my own discipline, I would never do it. But if Katie puts it on my calendar, well, I got to do it. And then gotta becomes get to.
Yeah, so the way I do that is I've created this thing I call the perfect start. And what I've discovered about me is that the only time of the day I can control is early in the morning. Because when the day gets started, the phone rings, the emails come in, the text, the family to do, the emergency, all the things that life throws at us. And so what I do is first thing in the morning, and I get up early for this. And Barry already mentioned this. He said, just start with 10 minutes, start with 15 minutes. And so here's the key. Whatever time you get up, just get up 15 minutes early and create for yourself the perfect start. So let me explain what I do in my perfect start. The first thing I do is a little practice called 2 chairs. And I'm a believer, I'm a Christian. And so what I do, and I've taken this from Bob Bodine's book, Two Chairs, is I have a chair for me and I have a chair for God. And I just reflect and I say, God, do you know the circumstance? Well, yeah, he does. He's God. 2, are you big enough to handle it? Absolutely. He's God. And 3, okay, what's the plan? And this is where I just listen. So it's 80% listening. This is the way I start my day. I haven't looked at email. I haven't done text. I haven't gone on social media. No distractions. In fact, it's just me, the 2 chairs, my coffee, and my water, and I'm there. And then the second thing I do is I start my reading. And I do devotionals, and then I have books. And I literally am looking at and reading 5 to 10 different books a day. Some of them just one page. Some of them I'm reading chapters. So I'm not really... I'm trying to fill my mind with the good stuff. And then I get into my goals and I start working on my goals. And we have a performance planner that we teach at Ziglar. And so I put my goals in, I put my calendar in there. Now I use a calendar on my phone or my computer. That does my scheduling, but I put the main things in my planner that I want to get done. And then once I have those appointments down, like I had this podcast down, so all the things that are going to take energy or conversations with other people, I do what I call a mental model. And I think about it for about 60 seconds and I think, gosh, how would I want this to go? What needs do they have when they walk in? How can I picture this going as perfectly as I can? And then I move on. And then when I get to that event, whatever that conversation is, even if it goes a totally new direction, I'm better prepared. My mind is ready for that. Once that is done, then I work on the one thing. And the one thing is the most important thing I've got to get done, and I set aside some time for that. So my whole schedule takes 40 or an hour and a half to 3 hours. But I also get up very early. And so for those of you who are just starting, don't worry about getting up hours and hours early. Don't worry about cramming all your stuff in. Get up 15 minutes early, put something positive into your mind. Read or listen to something, have a little quiet time, envision what you want to accomplish. And if you're not into goals yet, just write down your to-do list. What's the most important thing you can do first, second, third, fourth? And that's it. You will find that if you keep doing this over 66 days, you will build a muscle in your brain and in your spirit you never knew you had. And the troubles that come along during the day, they seem to be easier. I mean, it's the craziest thing. It's like, oh, wow, that's okay. I knew that was coming. Or, well, I've got an answer for that. It's totally different than waking up at the last minute, grabbing a donut on the way out of the house, and then walking into a hornet's nest because something went wrong, wherever you're going. It's just, that's my practice that sets the whole day in motion.
I was so relating to many of the pointers that you say, and I reflect in who I am and a lot of the stuff that you do. When I saw the great pile of books on your couch, I was impressed. And the flash that came over me was, well, if Tom could be reading, 6 to 7 to 8 different books and culling from each of them, is there a lesson in there for anyone who wants to start reading? Do they have to literally, I've got to pile through this whole book? I mean, people never sometimes make it to the end of a book because they say, I've got what I wanted from it, and I'm done, even though the bookmarker may be halfway through. Can you give us a couple of minutes on how to really get that level of consumption?
Well, there's 2 things. I prefer shorter doses trying to learn. And so a lot of times I'm doing 1 page or 1 chapter at a time. If I'm traveling or I get into something that's like really hitting all the hot spots, I might read all the way through it. That's number 1. Number 2, if you read a chapter into a book and you're like, man, this just isn't hitting the spot, you might just want to thumb through and see if there's another chapter that interests you. Skim that. If that doesn't hit the spot, man, there's too many good books out there. Just put it aside and get the next one, because there are books out there that you will connect with. People are also audio, not just visual. So if you love audible.com and you want to listen to books, and that's fantastic as well. Mm-hmm. I'm a podcast connoisseur. So I've got half a dozen podcasts that I'm always listening to based on the information I'm trying to find or the mood that I'm in. And so definitely do not feel guilty about not connecting with a particular one and moving on. Just make sure you make it a habit. Got it.
Thank you so much. Barry, what's it mean to you to be a Ziglar Legacy certified coach?
Oh, look, it really means everything. And when I first went to Ziglar, I didn't go for the certification. I went for the Speakers Academy because I found myself, and you've heard me tell this story, Carm, I found myself on the stage at Vision, which you've been to. And I was the keynote on Sunday, which there's over 1,000 people on the Sunday keynote, right? And so I had never given a keynote. And Sir Richard Branson said, if somebody offers you an unbelievable opportunity and you don't know how to do it, go ahead and accept it and learn how to do it. And I studied every TED Talk. I listened to Les Brown. I started listening to Ziglar, and I'd always listen to Ziglar, but I wasn't listening now to learn so much of what he was saying because I can complete his sentences, but how he said it, how he delivered it. I have my Ziglar homage every time is where I get down on one knee once a talk and really do that level.
The style. You were getting the style going, right? All right. Okay.
And so I went to that keynote. Well, all of a sudden, off of that keynote, I had 3 keynotes. And I'm like, well, I better get better at this. So I started to look, and I'm like, oh, let's go to the talk.
Ziglar Speakers Institute. It's a 3-day intensive boot camp where you actually do your presentation, and we coach you on how to build a story and all that good stuff.
Absolutely. So I went there first. Well, I started out, I've been studying Zig for 17 years. Well, I also am a big fan. And so when I first got there, Tom will tell you that I was wide-eyed and overwhelmed. And it just hit me emotionally because here's a guy, if you know a little bit about my story, I did, the first thing I learned about fathers is they run. My dad took off when I was a very young guy. So when I started listening to Zig, I would hear him tell stories about Tom and said, man, if I could only have a dad like that. He tells one story in particular about Tom sinking his first birdie putt. And then, he found himself in a situation to where he was staring over this, I think it was a 6 or 8 foot putt, Tom. And he thought to himself, this is the first time my son might beat me on a hole of golf. And he said, I knew right then that I need to take all the time necessary because I didn't want my son to have an empty victory. He stared it down, walked it around, and his dad ended up making the putt. So Tom didn't get victory that day. Right, Tom? He said, Zig looked at Tom and said, were you rooting for me? Or were you, how'd you feel about it? Or what? I can't remember exactly what he said.
But Tom, were you pulling for me?
Were you pulling for me? And Tom looked at him, and I was listening to this on a DVD, and my son was like 6 years old, and he plays golf too. And I'm listening to this on DVD, and Tom said, Dad, I'm always pulling for you. And let me tell you, I found myself tearing up and crying in the car in front of my workplace about this story. And I'm like, man, if I can just be a dad like that. And I can happily say today that I am because of that surrogate legacy, that surrogate father that I had that I never met. I never met. The only real regret I ever had is I never met Tom or Zig Ziglar. But I have, because when I went to that Speakers Academy, I met Cindy, I met Tom, I met Julie. Julie looks exactly like my mother, by the way. I met him through his legacy, and I see today the adults that they've become because of this. So what does being Ziglar Legacy certified mean to me? Everything.
And had you not taken those steps in the early days to listen and learn, I can't even imagine where you'd be right now.
Oh, me neither. I'll tell you where I would be. I'd be working in construction, building stuff. And there's zero wrong with that. Zero wrong with construction. If that's your gift. Well, it wasn't my gift because you can go talk to my former bosses and they were like, that guy should not be building stuff.
I'm sitting here as a fan. I'm sitting here as a listener and so absorbed. Let me ask you, Tom, your favorite story or your favorite quote from your dad?
my original favorite quote, which is now my second favorite quote, is this: "You are what you are and where you are because of what's gone into your mind. And you can change what you are and you can change where you are by changing what goes into your mind." And so off of that quote, I mean, really, it just says, hey, we are everything that's come in and we believe. And if we don't like where we are or who we are or how we respond to the world, we can change that just by changing what goes into our mind. And so out of that, I created my own quote because I'm very food oriented. I like short and simple. So my quote is, "What you feed your mind determines your appetite." I gave that quote in Atlanta, in NASCAR country. And this lady in the back of the room, I said that quote and she jumped up and she said, "That's just like NASCAR." And I have to tell you, I'd never thought about that quote in conjunction with NASCAR. And so I said, "Explain that to me." And she said, "Oh, it's easy. You go around the track in NASCAR at 185 miles per hour. Your eyes have to look where the car wants to go because your eyes and your hands are linked. And at that speed, if your eyes look at the wall, your hands will automatically follow and you'll hit the wall." And so in life, what we do is we got to look at who we want to become, where we want to go, the things that we want to do. If we say to ourselves, "Don't eat that, don't say that, don't do that," guess what we do? We eat the cheesecake, we offend the person next to us, and we sleep in. Instead, we need to say, "Hey, I love healthy salad. I mean, I love high quality protein. I get the kick out of finding out what's important to other people because that's how I build relationships. And you know what? I love getting up early and having a perfect start and get some exercise." And when we change that, then everything changes. Then the third one, which is my number one favorite quote, Dad at the end of his life, dealing with brain injury and Alzheimer's. So it was difficult for him to communicate. And so whenever he came up with something that was new or unique, you knew that he really, really struggled to put it together. And so he would say this, he would say, "Son, do you know my favorite quote?" And of course, he would repeat himself at this stage of his life. And we would just answer, "No, Dad, tell us." And so this is what he said. He said, "Son, God don't make no junk. And thanks to your mother, neither do I." At that stage of his life, that was a new thought his heart had wanted to share with me. And whenever somebody gives you a quote that touches you personally because it's about you, it changes everything. So that's my favorite quote.
So his favorite quote, my favorite quote is the same. So you are where you are what you are about what you put into your mind. You can change where you are. You can change what you are by what you put into your mind, because it's the story of me. I'm where I am and what I am. We're talking about a remedial reader in high school. And now I grab my books that I have behind me that I'm reading. It just changes who I am and takes me to where I want to be. And now I read 3 books a month and I have an amazing ability to remember. It's why I remember so many quotes, because I've been gifted with a ability to recall information and don't even know where that comes from. I used to write and read, but I realized that I wasn't retaining half the information by writing it than I am actually reading it. So I just started reading again. And I think that's a good problem to have. My second favorite quote is Cindy Ziglar's favorite quote. And it is, "Failure is an event. It's not a person. Yesterday really did end last night." And because every day I know I embrace failure, because I know failure is what's going to make me succeed. And man, that's a different mindset. So my favorite story of Zig Ziglar is different. So there's the pump story. He's known for the pump story. And I had an old fashioned pump. That's how we got our water growing up. But when I look at, that's the story of life, that's the story of us, that's a good story to listen to and know that what you put in is what you get out.
That's the significance of the pump. As I saw on the website, everybody's touching the pump when they become certified. What a symbol! And you're wearing your pump lapel pin, Barry. I'm so grateful for both of you to come on the show and pay it forward for the automotive aftermarket. Barry, would you promise to come back and do goals?
Carm, I'll do anything for you, man. You've been such a blessing to me.
And Tom, I know you're the busiest guy in the world, but you have added so much to this. And, I would almost I'm publicly suggesting or begging that maybe you come back.
You got it. It was great. And I want to get the link to this because you did a fabulous conversational interview that it covered a lot of ground, but it also went really deep in the what I consider the most essential thing. So you've got a gift. So,
well, thank you. I'm moved by all the great wisdom that we have laid here, and I just can't wait to get this out for the world to hear. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. Hey, Aftermarketers, thanks for joining us. Did you love that? Wasn't that a powerful episode? Well, I thank Tom Ziglar for the very kind compliment and for his valuable time and for the support that Barrett has shown me over the last year. He is always there to contribute to the betterment of the aftermarket. Thanks, Barry. Find the episode's talking points and additional bio information at remarkableresults.biz/E220. Hey, any questions or comments? Email me at carm@remarkableresults.biz or head over to the contact page on the website. Share this content-rich resource with your friend. Everyone in your circle of friends needs to listen to this episode. And maybe they get hooked on podcasts like you. Some tell me that they don't listen to radio anymore. It's all about podcasts. And I'm grateful and thankful for your support. Thanks for being on board to listen and learn from another inspiring aftermarket professional. Until next time.